So I see Andreas, I see Mark, I see Jimmy, I see Stephen, Jack, Nick, Sam, Stefan, Hudson. Hey, Hudson. Alessandro. Hey, Alessandro, how's it going?
Pretty good. Nice to meet you again. Happy New Year
Yeah, Happy
to
New Year.
everybody.
For folks who haven't met Alessandro before, Alessandro is at, Alessandro, you want to introduce yourself, I guess?
Yeah, so my name is Alessandro. I'm working for SAP in the Innovation Center for Blockchain Technology. And I just started in SAP, I think a little bit over a year ago. And before I also worked in the Ethereum space a little bit more, especially for Gnosis. Maybe some of you already know them.
Very cool. It's good to see you. Ash, Gnome, Connor, Brian, Tracy. Hey, Tracy, how's it going? And we got another mind here. So that's either Gina or Tomasz, maybe. And we have Didier. Hey, Didier. It's nice to see you. And Anais.
Hello.
And more folks that probably aren't showing up on my tiles, but it's great to see everybody. This today is our a day for discussing there are fairly few things that we need to go over. So this is really a planning day and an opportunity for people to discuss what we need to prioritize in the next coming weeks. On the agenda, we have, we'll, as we always do, review of maintainer and standards team status. I think this is likely to be a less than 10-minute activity. So Sam Stokes, ringleader for the maintainers, do we have any new issues to review, any disputes to resolve by the TSC, or any new maintainers that you want to discuss?
No new maintainers, but was talking to Kyle over the past couple of weeks and had a proposal to reduce the number of approvals we need on PRs to get them merged. So I think now is probably the right time to propose that. Right now we require 3 approvals and at least 1 code owner to be one of those approvals. So the proposal was just to reduce that from 3 down to 2.
Okay.
We're having a little bit of a log jam of PRs coming through, and I think getting enough approvals, given our kind of limited number of maintainers right now, is taking longer than we would like. So that's the reason we're proposing that.
All right. If I remember our bylaws or our charter correctly, I think that's a majority vote on the TSC. I tell you what, let's take that up on the maintainer call an hour from now, and we will. I need to double check on our bylaws. Hang on for a second. Pulling that up. So governance, TSC, maintainers, steady state maintainers, contributors. I'll tell you what, just to keep the meeting rolling along, if somebody could go over to the Baseline Protocol website or to the docs, click down to governance or onto maintainers. Somewhere in there are the rules on changing the number of approvals. I just want to make sure we get that right, but I think if I remember correctly, it's fairly straightforward. So let's get that done. Is there any dissent that anyone would like to voice on that proposal?
John, could you, hey, how's it going? First of all.
Hey, Kyle.
Can you restate that? Sorry, I just joined.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think you're probably familiar. The proposal that Sam just made was to increase or decrease the number of people that need to from 3 to 2.
Yeah, I like it.
Maintainers.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Would anyone like to offer? Let's start with a con. Are there any cons to doing this that we need to discuss? 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, no cons. Okay.
Well,
The
John,
docs.
I think the obvious con is that less people, you're forcing less people to have their eyes on it. So smaller number of people can merge in changes, I guess would be the con there.
All right. Are we seeing a lot of frivolous or destructive potential pull requests at this point?
No, I don't think so.
I think that is also the pro, what Sam stated.
Yeah.
It is
Brian?
the pro and the con.
Ryan, you came off mute. Do you have something?
Yeah, I guess I was just, and I've been away, so maybe I've been part of the problem. I was on leave for the last most of December. So have we looked at why people are letting things back up and what we can do to ask people why they're not attending to those needs or those needs of the project, rather than altering the rules of the PR submissions?
I think that's worthy of discussion. Certainly, we can take that up on the maintainer call today. I tell you what, we can probably, unless I'm wrong, we can probably have a virtual vote of the TSC on the matter, which would not require us to resolve it today or in this meeting, but we could do it certainly in the next 24, 48 hours, if that's okay with the maintainers.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Yep.
All right, and we'll have the minutes reflect that the proposal was lodged. Okay. I suppose we could go into the pros, but I think that's kind of that's implicit. Any other discussion on this? All right, I'll offer that. Yeah, their times are changing. I think, especially with the big push I expect that we will be having this quarter on enablement and solutions companies being able to sell baseline systems. I suspect that the number of maintainers are going to go up a lot, and I suspect that there will be more intensity about what goes into things, or whether or not a pull request is going to be acceptable to people, because it could be that one company has a real problem with. We didn't see in 2020 any cases, I don't think, of something being contributed that was a problem for anyone. But as things intensify and as people's careers and livelihoods get stuck into making sure that into baselining, that's very likely to change. So that may be the one reason to be mindful about it. But I, for one, don't have any particular objection beyond that observation. And we can always move it back up. So, any further discussion on that? Okay. Hey, Karen. Hey, Daniel. It's nice to see you guys.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm feeling good about this new year. I'm feeling bad about the homeopathic amount of crypto I have. Certainly it seemed like everybody else was really excited. Yeah. So let's see what's next on the agenda. Maintainer standard. Okay, standards team. Anais, you're up. I know you don't. There's nothing new. I saw your Slack on that. Must have been the last Slack to get through.
There is nothing new since the last TSA meeting because, well, we had the holiday period, season, I should say. But on Thursday this week is our first meeting of the year. And this is where we will discuss the, if I could use the word, like roadmap for this year and the priority for Q1. But I think we had agreed already in December that we'll focus on the completion of the API specification, if possible, with a priority on org management, identity, and agreement execution interfaces. And I'm aware that there have been a lot of work being done by some people during the holidays, so there will be few things to catch up on in terms of identifying the gaps between the processes that we had initially listed or drafted, I should say, and the functions and the capabilities delivered by the different interfaces that we currently have. And I think, yeah, the ideal will be to have a bit more contributors from maybe different backgrounds. We have a new contributor from a low background. We have a couple of people who have joined, and their contribution has been quite helpful so far, and we can see the value in this. So yeah, so that's what is coming from Thursday.
Thank you, Anais. Folks may not all know that we won the Oasis, what is it? The Oasis Award for Best New Standards Project in Oasis, all of Oasis, not just the OP. So we're, that was 2020. And the way things are going with the quality of the standards team meetings, I expect we'll win the best new draft standard of 2021. If things keep going the way they're going, I think those are probably some of the best meetings I've attended, and well done to the whole team there. Go ahead.
Can I add a comment, or do you? I mean,
Oh, please.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to directly speak to that.
We're on time.
What Anais said. Okay, great. There is, as it looks like, in February, there is going to be a first technical standard for DLTs that's going to be published, the first ever, through the Metro Ethernet Forum. So there are two standards rolled in one, really. There's a technical standard for DLTs, layer 1, and there's a functional spec around billing.
Is this
so,
permissioned or permissionless, or does it matter?
It does not speak to whether it's permission or not, because that's really irrelevant.
Do you have a link for the for that work?
The draft standard is going to be published in February. Until then, I cannot share. It's still, the only thing that I wanted to bring up is that I would like to suggest that we align around, or start aligning around actually existing standards around pieces of our of the baseline puzzle, and try to make them fit as much as possible. A, to avoid rework, and B, to not create A, competing, and B, possibly contradicting standards, because there's no reason to, if it's not quote unquote a highly specific piece of functionality or functional, non-functional piece of standard that is very unique to the baseline technique and is not applicable anywhere else. So
very well. So I'm lodging that.
My point that I would like to raise, and
I think that's well made, and I think it's probably a good thing to be mindful of as we go into the standards work this week. So I bet Anais is already taking a note on that, and I will put it in the minutes.
Yeah, what could be interesting is that I suppose the draft will be published in February for public review or public feedback, right? Is that correct, Andreas?
Yes, you can then so it's a draft standard, which means there is now, outside of MEF, people can comment on that, and then in April is when we anticipate that that draft standard will become then a fully official standard, which is relatively quickly. But also so besides MEF, CBAN is also going to align around that standard. So
Okay.
it's again a fully DLT agnostic
That's really good to know.
Yes.
standard
Thank you.
specification. I know that a couple of stacks will not like that standard. But
Okay.
but that's just how it is.
Appreciate that, Andreas. I think that's good. And it probably speaks to a number of other ones like identity standards, and the folks are.
It's same thing. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So moving on to let's review the hackathon status. There's not a lot to review yet, but anyone who is not aware, we moved the deadline to the 27th of January. And then we'll have to saddle up and make sure that we judge those out very quickly so that people can get their awards in early February. We have not set a award date, but I should think no more than 4 weeks, and hopefully as few as 2 weeks after the 27th to hand out those $10,000 that $10,000 in awards. We have I haven't looked this morning, but Gitcoin, it looks like we have a pretty reasonably healthy number of projects going against our 7 awards, and it looks like 13. I am hopeful that we will see more in January. That's one of the reasons why we saw that people were kind of not taking the bait of doing it over the holidays. Some were, but I suspect a lot more are just going to come back from the holiday and get into it. So
I've seen some good projects that are ongoing that are not captured in that list.
Oh, that's great to know. Yeah, that's right. A lot of people hold their powder on the project submission until they've finished. So we should see more
sandbagging.
Sandbagging, right? So please, everyone, get the word out on this. Here's the list. If you haven't, so I mean, use your social networks, your friends at companies, and your professional groups to make sure that everybody knows that they can win those awards. We have seen a significant uptick over the holidays in participants in both the Slack channel. We're now closing in on 1,000 people on the Slack channel. That's just the Slack channel. Thousands of people now across all the different communications protocols. Now we are the baseline protocol itself. Just on Twitter is maintaining an accelerating lead over things that have been around for a lot longer, like Kaleido and other things. So I think we're well over 5,000 followers just on Twitter, and that's largely thanks to the efforts of Jack and others that have been maintaining those social networks. So thanks for everybody for that. And that is there any discussion on the hackathon that anyone would like to bring up? Okay. Let's switch over to roadmap, and I'm going to share screen, and you'll see a big blank canvas, just as it should be for the new year. So here we are. Let's start the discussion. What do we think about the new year, about 2021? What are the priorities? And I guess I'll just knowing that folks sometimes want a little prompt to get going. I'll start off by saying that there's a lot of energy towards enablement, right? So packages. materials. That folks want a lot more enablement materials, and so that's one thing. What else? What else do we want? What do we want to focus on as a community in Q1?
Well, it's linked to enablement, but the outreach. I mean, I think we need to start engagement with stakeholders in the typical enterprise process, enterprise IT, or procurement space at a maybe larger scale, that we have been doing as well.
Fundraising, that's part of because the community in the end needs some full-time people, right? And there's we'll probably need some committed regular donors in order to get that going. With the rise in Bitcoin and Ether, I'm sure a couple can part.
John, are there any opportunities for internships for either undergrad or grad students?
I should think so. I'm going to bring that up.
I mean, that would be a great thing. And for, students, current students, they're already interviewing. I mean, a lot of them have already accepted roles, in particular those that want to work in, in finance and consulting. But if anything like that was available, it's great to kind of introduce students to these kinds of opportunities, because, in a matter of months, they'll be working at someplace, and they can bring these learnings to, to their new companies.
Indeed. Speaking of companies, let's say strong push that in Q1 and this year for bringing in more participating companies, for more companies, products, offerings that baseline, right? So and in that, of course, is some of them will sponsor, which is of course related to that fundraising stuff. So I think that's definitely on the agenda. A lot of companies that have been waiting to see if this thing was going to hold water clearly is, and we are in the enterprise space, so there's a natural conservatism, and I think we're about to be pushing through that, especially with the announcements of production deployments of V01. What else?
One thing that I was thinking of, this is kind of related to enablement materials, but a potential quick win could be blog post, but specifically targeting some of the misconceptions. And I know the mainnet working group with the EEA has kind of talked about some of these posts before, but I think coming from a baseline perspective, so people don't have to dig through GitHub, would be really valuable.
Yeah, I think, and so I think maybe that's a really good point. And I'm going to say website, ticking up that website.
Yeah.
We sort of, we nibble at the website. We do a little bit improvement, another one. So certainly website improvement to include more enablement materials, right?
In addition to the misconceptions about public blockchain, including the misconceptions about private blockchain would be important as well, I think, and that explanation.
So you can compare and contrast. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So we are really talking about education, like baselining for executive or baselining 101, to really tackle those misconceptions, what it is not. So I think in addition to enablement materials, which may be more sales-oriented, I would you really have a category like education something.
Awareness.
Yeah, education.
Generally,
Yeah.
yeah. Awareness and, when I think of enablement, I do think more traditional education by role, right? So identifying what roles we might want to cover as part of that, right? Is it just the engineering roles, or are there architect roles, sales roles, what have you? But I think awareness is a big piece of that, and it tends to be broader, and it kind of, like an umbrella.
I would specifically talk about reaching out, and not enablement, but outreach to consortia that have a DLT focus, or that have a strong DLT component, and I mean industry consortia, right? It's like doing webinars for it's like IEEE or MEF or GSMA or TM Forum and a few others. I think it's just to get the the members of those organizations that are interested, and those are typically the either product owners or executives that are there. If we can get into as part of the like their members meetings, quarterly or annual, I think if we can get that in, I think that would be very, very helpful to increase enterprise outreach, because that's the easiest way to get in front of a larger number of executives at one point, rather than doing it one at a time. So I think that's more bang for the effort buck, so to speak.
Agreed. And I added there while you were talking, we really need to break out of the blockchain box, right? And focus on participation and relevance in ongoing traditional IT communities. Correct?
Yeah. If we de-emphasize blockchain DLT, and really emphasize the simplicity for traditional IT for implementation, I think that is definitely a win. I mean, besides SAP, would it make sense to like do the rounds with the ERP vendors to get sort of like a community of practice in there, to have interfaces available, or properly I can't speak this morning, appropriate connectors that people can utilize within their implementations to connect to an available baseline provider, to make it easier, right? I mean, we have SAP, but I'm thinking also about it's like the oracles of Oracle's, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, Workday, Fourth Shift, also the smaller ones that are more, also sometimes more industry specific. They have that might be
clearly more baselining means more sales of those, and more and also more bites at the cherry, right, for the products and offerings that are already installed that can get another hit of revenue from those same customers by adding baselining to the stack, right?
Yeah, and that we can have a session at their annual conferences. Pretty much, that's what it is. Not that we're trying to convince them, but just showcase how that makes it easier for what the value add for the ERP vendors are, and for their customers.
Right on. Didier, I wonder if you have any thoughts on tokenization as an agenda item in 2021, the relationship of baselining to tokeny things, DeFi things. Is that an important priority?
I think it makes sense in the sense that there are a lot of use cases that, I mean, we often talk about procurement and supply chain as the main use cases, and they are, but there are also plenty of use cases in the financial services industry or around supply chain finance that we are exploring, where the combination of baselining and tokenization makes a lot of sense. And there's this topic of trying to get some assets financed by DeFi. So that's another topic that we're exploring. So yes, for sure, it makes sense. I think the most compelling use cases often are the and business process automation when it comes to enterprise use cases.
Can I make a suggestion here? So there is at least in the US, and that is undoubtedly also the largest markets, and other regulators are looking to that. There is a new regulatory advisement coming from FinCEN about KYC for non-custodial wallets, which is actually a big issue. I think it might be worth tackling that issue within the baseline context and showing that it is very, very possible within the baseline context to really very easily and readily implement that FinCEN rule to show people how there is a path to tokenization without running afoul of any regulatory concerns. I think that's key for a lot of companies that want to go on the tokenization route. They just don't know how to. Not how to technically, but how to in a way that gives them the warm and fuzzy feeling. And I have not seen a single one that gives people the warm and fuzzy feeling on the enterprise side. Right.
So more on the enablement as well, right? So maybe a document on that. Somebody could take that up. Warm and fuzzies.
Yeah. No. So it's more an outline how you can do tokenization that's compliant with all existing rules, right? And maybe we can get that might also be a way of getting some lawyers interested in baselining, especially lawyers in the crypto space, to see that baseline might be a very good on-ramp for anything related around a token and enterprises, because in the end, for lawyers, the big money comes when they can work with the enterprises. So
okay, so let's move. Thank you. Let's move to. I know security is I think that is being very well handled in the standards team. But let's move into the technical side of things. Hey, Evan, I see you there. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hello. All right. And Ash and Dominic, lots more people have showed up. So good to see everybody.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about technical agenda. Maintainer team, Sam, Brian, Kyle, folks. What are the priorities from that perspective?
I think quickly, I think getting a couple of the outstanding packages trued up to latest findings through or latest findings from I guess combination of from our experience and also community developments that have been happening around the persistence package and creating a more readable, understandable way or reference for how things work in and around persistence as systems of record as it relates to baseline and messaging and the other packages. Is that clear?
Okay. Yeah, it's starting there. So persistence package sounds like your highest priority right now in terms of getting that more complete. More complete, is that a thing you can say? No, I don't think it is.
It is now.
Complete extension and quality, right?
Yeah, and making it more obvious how things actually should be implemented. A lot of the learnings that that we've had, at least, are we're working to bubble those up. And I know there's some folks in the community that are actively building stuff, like Myron. He's that I've seen some code that he's built around the persistence package that looks pretty good, really.
Yeah, Myron from Fraunhofer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good guy. Okay, so what else? So that's great. I mean, that's a clear kind of signal that persistence package needs work. What else?
Bubbling up some more stuff about privacy, how to use techniques to stay off layer 1 and do it in a way that scales the everything that all the work steps prior to exiting a workflow. Sort of
workflow exits, right? Yeah, so workflow exit seems to be coming up a lot, right?
Yeah, exiting the workflow, because that's really the entry point there for tokenization. I think we've got a scalable proposal or scalable path, proposed. I think getting more eyeballs on that will be good.
I suspect, Anais, that workflow exits are going to pop up as a specification topic as well.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are 3 good ones. Anything else, Brian? Yeah, you've had Mazel Tov, by the way, and you've had some good time to think. Are there any things that are on your mind in this regard?
Just to, I guess, help. I think it was already been mentioned on the call. I mean, I guess I agree with what Kyle said, but then also, I think maybe it was Anais who said earlier, just having better on-ramps for folks in the form of examples and showcases and ways that they can take baseline and use it in their organizations, or begin to experiment with that and bridge the gaps that need to be filled with some technical implementation, some apps, some community outreach, and again, seeing what comes out of the hackathon. Excited to see what people have been working on. That would be it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And in fact, it reminds me, I was thinking about somebody on Twitter said, what's hello world for baselining? Right. So I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember so in Fabric in the early days, and I think it's still the case, Hello World is a game called Marbles. We created this thing called Marbles, and you would implement Marbles, the Marbles game. You would trade marbles, basically. And that was Hello World for us back in the day.
Yeah, I've been working on an angle for that, which talked to some of the maintainers about and presented a bit at the showcase, the summit. But it's still something I'm hoping to roll out and get further along. But TBD on that. I guess we can table that for another call. But
right on. Okay, we're coming to the end. Let me just double check my.
I've one item
on
the technical side is really not another item, but a clarification. I would call this workflow interoperability, including exiting, because I've been thinking about because workflow interoperability currently from the thinking and from some of the requirements, it makes interoperability between workflows really hard, so that you can, it's like getting you have to exit and then you need to re-import, and that's not really either slick nor very easy to do unless you really want to exit. So I've been looking into privacy preserving multi-party computation, and that through recursive zero knowledge proofs, and that is something that I think would be interesting, not like for only Q1, but for this year, because if we had that, then that would be really exciting to be able to at least establish interoperability between workflows that are and again multiple any number of workflows that would that are utilizing at least the same cryptographic primitives. Let's put it this way.
Very good. Okay, so Karen, let's turn a little bit to two topics. One we brought up a little bit before, which was enablement for solutions vendors, folks like I think we have Accenture online. Is we still have Tracy there? I'm looking. Yeah, Tracy's there. Hey, Tracy.
Hey.
Hey. So I think that it seems like enablement, if you just look at the board here, helping develop, supporting folks that are trying to sell this stuff, that are trying to develop offerings and solutions, seems to be pretty important. Do you have any thoughts on that? Anything that you want to say about that particular topic?
I guess I could add a couple of just general thoughts. So on why transparency on public blockchain is just important in general, I think a big question that needs to be addressed is, why is that better than other forms of transparency for business and corporations? So like a good example is the recent activity around climate action. So you have a lot of organizations trying to be transparent about what they're doing, and Stripe is a great example by publicly posting on GitHub their entire RFP process and all that they've done. And that translates as complete transparency for business in today's world. So why would baselining and trying to operate across a public network be better than being transparent, which is one use case for this? So that's a big question, I think, that deserves some more thought to it. And then around tokenization in general, I think y'all brought up the KYC for non-custodial, and that really, I think, is a blip on the radar for the way most, at least in my field, how people are considering the impact, because to start anything without KYC would be pretty much out of the question. And then realistically, I think even those first questions of, well, if we're just going to do a proof of concept, like we're not going to there's steps between jumping full on and saying we've got to figure out a way to hold our own ether tokens or whatever, versus just seeing if it's going anywhere in general. So what are those steps, and what's the minimum way to do that without just completely abstracting everything to where it's so off chain it just doesn't prove anything? So that's also a balance that needs to be struck, because I don't think we're so in the weeds as to figure out everything yet, but there needs to be enough on the plate being able to interact with the actual public blockchain itself, so that we're not just building something that we could build in any other database and get partners to join on with us.
Can I get an amen? Absolutely.
Karen,
yeah,
you
getting
just
out of
said
the
something.
POC trap. No, go ahead. Sorry, very quickly.
Sorry. I just wanted to Karen to speak. You said something that's really, really important. I don't know whether you intended to do that, but it's like I think the transparency is really important. I think there's an adjective that what you described is claimed transparency, right? Versus provable transparency, right? I can put my RFP process on GitHub that doesn't mean anything, right? There's no proof that you're actually following this, right? So that's a
it sounds
big
like
difference.
there's no burden of proof. It sounds like right now there's no expectation of proof, and so the concept of claimed versus proven is almost non-existent for our audience. So much so that it is meaningless to them were we to provide it at this point. Is that a good read?
That is, and I would say it's figuring out what you could do with that codified proof that would be valuable potentially. And I think that gets into the world of maybe more really far-reaching thinking in DeFi and tokenization. But if you were actually proving things on a layer of value, how would that be better than just broadcasting it as information outside of a system that allows you to do so many more things?
Yeah, I'd like to say there, and I bet Tracy has some thoughts on this as well. We have to make this notion of working with the public blockchain safe for practitioners, for solutions folks, to be able to do RFPs that say, yes, we're going to use the mainnet for this. And I think the word that I picked up on quickly was transparency. And somebody I was talking to that runs a big food network was saying, hey, we use the blockchain for transparency. And I said, really? Do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think you really want transparency. I think you want certain people to know what they need to know at the right time in the right place. And that you don't want other people to know that. You want more transparency, but you don't want transparency. And they had to admit, yeah, I think that's true. And in fact, the question is, there's an old line that says that, what your customers want is never as interesting as why they want it, right? Why do people want transparency or say that? Well, they don't want to be surprised, right? They don't want bad things to happen, but and they think that having more transparency will reduce their chance of being surprised, right? But transparency comes at a cost. And I think one of the things I like about the baseline process is it doesn't actually provide transparency from that. There's nothing transparent that's going on in the mainnet at all, right? It's very not transparent. It's highly compartmentalized, and all the data stays in highly compartmentalized systems. But so if I don't want to provide the definitive answer, but I'll say, is it not true that with baselining, the point of the public blockchain is simply the most simple reason is you don't have to stand it up every time you have a new partner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and John, the entire perception of a public blockchain is that disinterested third party that basically says, it's a neutral umpire between two or more people.
Yeah, it's really hard to change it, right? So you throw a proof on there, and you can be reasonably certain that nobody's going to be changing that after the fact once it's deposited. Right?
And that's one of the pillars of transparency. And so another thing that I was talking about, within transparency is, some is good, more is not necessarily better. You want to be able to have the sufficient transparency to satisfy all of the parties involved, so that they have that certain confidence within the exchange. But one thing, trying to get back to what Karen was bringing up, when it comes to using a public forum to actually kind of sit there and give or be able to show the permanence of whatever you're trying to put together. We use that right now within a public forum. If you're going to incorporate, if you're going to buy something, if you're going to register anything, it's done within the public legal realm. And where that's useful for is basically preventing conflict. Basically saying we have somebody who is not connected to either one of us that will affirm that what we did, happened, and that it was, within the and happened along the rules that we established. So that's why when it comes to another thing Karen talked about was the having a broadcast versus a proof. I can tell you something and that can be one thing, but if I can prove it to you, that's going to go a lot further because it resolves conflict before it even happens, because somebody can actually prove that this is going to happen rather than just telling me. It's the old show and tell. You're telling me everything, but you're showing me nothing.
Yeah.
This is for the result. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all those points are very relevant, and I would definitely say that in addition to that, on a very basic level, it's all about what is the value added of baselining to my business? What difference does it make? And how can I measure it? And what am I measuring? And is having a clear understanding, either at industry or use case specific, or for even a given company, what are those metrics? And how do we formulate to those key stakeholders? Oh, Jesus, what difference does it make to them? Because we will explain the transparency but okay, what is the impact in terms of cost, improvement of my processes? And it will boil down to this when it comes to even investing in a POC in the first place.
Yes, I think everything is a belief-based business until there's data, right? And I think thanks to the Coke project and others, the Coca-Cola project, we're going to start to get some good data, and over time, it'll be nice to see actuarial type data that says, there's a high correlation between baselining and things going wrong less, and my rates of my cost for having to hedge against things going wrong goes down. I think that would certainly be a very relevant CEO level conversation to be having. Hey, are you baselining? Because if you are, there are now products and services that can reduce your cost of handling hedging against those bad outcomes by maybe 10x, right? But whether it's 10x or 11x or 15x or 9x, I think we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, and John, I would say another big thing that we put on there is, and it speaks almost to the breakout of the blockchain box, is we need to pitch the business domain just as heavily as we do the technical domain. I would say more so because these are the people with the money, the authority, and the need. These are the ones that will basically say, we will sponsor this, and they're able to financially support it. And right now, I think a lot of us, we get really hung up on having a very tight, clean, functioning software product, and which is important. But I think in parallel, we have to basically be pushing the business side, saying, hey, this is where it will translate value. This is why you need this.
Yeah, here's what it can do, here's what it can't do, and here's how that impacts your business, right?
And here's what's going to make your competitors jealous and keep them awake at night, because they're not baselining and you are.
I should think that if my business was baselined with my counterparties, I actually don't stay up awake at night as often.
Exactly.
I get to sleep at night. So
but say your competitors that aren't baselining, they're the ones saying, hey, because their cycle times are too long and their conflict resolution is a mess.
Right on. Okay, so this is a lot of good stuff. I'll go to work on compiling it and presenting it back to the team. We're closing in on the top of the hour. We have a couple of actions. The maintainers are going to do some stuff. I would like to, and we can take this offline, but if somebody would like to volunteer to take charge of a winter cleaning of the backlog and the repo, the baseline roadmap repo, I would be very grateful to anybody that would like to take a little bit of drudgery on themselves for that work. Go through and see what's still relevant, what can be thrown out, what can be brought to the top of the stack. So if anybody would be willing to do that, we'd all be very grateful for that help. And the other thing is, and Tracy, I'd love to give you the last word on this. I mean, if enablement is the thing for Q1, and if I just look across most of the stuff we talked about, a lot of it is about enablement, especially for solutions developers. What are your thoughts on those prospects? If we missed anything that we should be discussing?
I think the one piece maybe to think about is how does it apply, or is it different across different sorts of industries? I think there was talk about particular use cases, but I think when we look at different clients and we talk to different clients, we may be focused on industries and those sorts of differences that they might need to understand differently. And then I think the other piece, right, as you guys were talking about transparency, the word that came to my mind was confidentiality, right? And thinking about even like in your own companies, I'm sure you have a bunch of InfoSec data classification sorts of rules, right? And what does that look like? And how does it play when you're talking about baseline? I think is probably another piece to think through.
Do you think from an Accenture perspective that you need more support, or are things going in the right direction for you in terms of being able to safely say, yeah, we're going to do a baseline project with you. It's going to cost this much money and it's going to use the public blockchain, and you're going to be okay with that?
So, I mean, public blockchain is always an interesting discussion. And, I think there was a couple of comments about trusting a third party. Who is that third party when it's a public blockchain? And who can you go to when you need to go to somebody to talk through those legal ramifications that were being talked through, right? So
I for one want to shame all companies that
than we have.
Yeah, I for one want to shame all I think we need to make it a peer pressure campaign at this point. What, really? You think that the public blockchain is a problem? Join us in the we need to turn that around, right, and say let's not be afraid of it. Let's the other thing there was maybe we need to trade the word transparency for the word integrity, right? That we're building an integrity system, and and if we can get people focused on that, would that help?
I think words definitely matter.
We don't want to get like the movie Idiocracy, where it's like, you don't smoke? Well, F you.
Oh, that was a funny movie. Terrifying and funny.
Terrifying.
Okay, so anybody want the last word? We're 1 minute over, but it's great to see everybody. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Sounds like we have a really good set of activities and a direction, and I will summarize and get that out to everybody as soon as possible.
Thanks. I'll take the last word. I know we just have
Awesome.
a few minutes, but it's been making me think. There's a quote from that TV show *Halt and Catch Fire* about the early computing days, where the sales guy says, computers aren't the thing, they're the thing that gets you to the thing. And I think you could make a similar case with how we've been working with ERPs and private blockchains, and that those aren't the thing. Those are the things that get you to the thing, which is public blockchain baselining in order to be completely interoperable. And I just catching on to more of those analogies to, like you say, facilitate the overflow of people joining this as an outpouring of more participants or network effects or whatever buzzword you want to use. But the more that we can align it to, it's not a comparison to existing, but it's something completely new, I think the better it is.
I'm just typing that away. Interoperability, yeah, integrity too, right? Sleeping at night.
Yeah.
They say that all products roll down to three things: save somebody time, give them more life, basically, allow them to worry less, and allow them to. Oops, I've forgotten the third one. Shades of Rick Perry. I forget. So, but two of them are to save people time and allow them to worry less, right? And so, at the end of the day, that is what the thing is.
Yeah, I don't know if I explained it correctly, but I mean, he's referring to it in the context of, you know, the early internet days, but I really think that it's analogous to, we've seen these private systems work for enterprise, but they are going to get us to an interoperable system at the end of the day. And that's why you would want to start doing it now.
Right on. Okay, I think that is a good last word. Karen and everybody else, it's great to see you all, and we'll see you on the other side.